Hello and welcome to ADHDFest, the podcast all about adult ADHD with a little bit of law of attraction and self-development thrown in there. I am your host, Tara Pratt, and today we are diving into a topic that I have somewhat avoided so far, but it's time to get into it, and that is AUDHD. We're going to explore the overlap between autism and ADHD. It's been coming up a lot lately in conversations, in DMs, even just my own personal rabbit holes. And if you've never heard of the term before, it basically, AUDHD means when someone has both ADHD and autism. And I want to make it clear that today I'm not here as some expert giving you a lecture. I don't know all there is to know. I'm here more like your friendly guide, someone who is curious too. And I have been doing some digging, some reading into some real studies and just thinking about me personally and if it would be a possibility for me. The answer is, I'll tell you the ending, I still don't know, but let's explore it together because I feel like there's a lot of people like me that are questioning this. And so let's grab a cup of tea or a coffee, whatever you want, get comfy and dive into this topic. So first up, what do we actually know about ADHD? I want to say I mean the collective we, because this isn't just an Instagram thing, there are real studies backing this up. So research shows that around 50 to 70% of autistic people are also diagnosed with ADHD. And that is a huge stat. You know, that's a lot of crossover. And until fairly recently, it wasn't even allowed to diagnose both together. So before 2013, the old DSM-5 manual said that if you had autism, you couldn't be diagnosed with ADHD too, and vice versa. And it was like they thought they were totally separate things. And 2013 is so recent. Maybe it's not if you're younger, but to me, 2013 is like yesterday. They thought it was two totally separate things. No wonder we're all in a mess these days. Now with the DSM-4 manual said if you had autism, you couldn't be diagnosed with ADHD. But the DSM-5, which is the updated one, they recognise that it's actually super common for people to have both, which is just wild. And so scientists are also starting to see that ADHD and autism can be different expressions of overlapping brain differences. So it's not like you have two totally unrelated conditions fighting each other in your brain. It's more like different colours on the same spectrum, which confuses me no end. So I'm sure that confuses you as well. The thing is, why I started questioning this is since I have been diagnosed with ADHD, which is very recent, well, not that recent now, I was diagnosed when I was nearly 35 and I'm now 38. I started medication and it helped a lot. It helped a lot with my ADHD struggles. And as time's gone on, I found that I'm struggling with slightly different things that were always there, but I could cope a bit better with them before. And I have heard through anecdotal, people online explaining their journey with it, that when they got diagnosed with ADHD and started taking medication, their autism traits really started to shine through, because what happens is these two things actually mask each other. And so my ADHD hyperactive side, extrovert through and through, actually masks maybe what could be autism, which is more insular. I need my time alone. I don't like to be overstimulated. Whereas ADHD, I'm always looking for stimulation. But it is a very confusing topic because I think it is because this is so new, because you could not be diagnosed with both before. There's a lot of people walking around that have been diagnosed for a long time with either just ADHD or just autism, and they believe that is the explanation for all of their traits, when really they could be diagnosed with the other condition. They just haven't been because they couldn't be. Like just 12 years ago, you could not be diagnosed with both, and they have no idea that they have both. And so they're going around talking about their one condition and thinking that everyone else with that one condition is exactly like them, when actually they represent two conditions at the same time. And to be honest, this has been playing on my mind with the podcast, because obviously everyone who is neurodivergent is absolutely welcome here. But I don't know. When I look at myself, I do not know, because, and I really am 50-50. I do think self-diagnosis is valid, but I can't self-diagnose myself from the research that I've done, because on one hand, the explanations of autism don't 100% fit with me, but I don't know whether that's because of my ADHD. Whereas before I was diagnosed and before I was on medication, the description of ADHD fit me perfectly. And there was a few other extra bits that I just ignored. But now those bits are much louder. Now that I've medicated my ADHD is still there, but the other bits are even louder, like I'm less social. And so it's really hard to work out whether both of these are at play with me. And obviously this podcast is called ADHDFest, which makes me nervous, because I'm thinking, are people with purely ADHD listening to this podcast and not relating to what I'm saying? And if you are relating to what I'm saying, that doesn't mean you're ADHD. It doesn't mean you've got autism and ADHD, because I don't know. I could be purely ADHD. It could be the fact that, you know, we all know in ADHD, we do get overwhelmed when, you know, overstimulated. We're not just looking for stimulation all the time. It's both. We do know that we can have social anxiety. So is it just that? I don't know. And that's why I really want to dig a bit deeper into it now. So let's talk about how this actually shows up in real life, because it's not always black and white. There are overlaps, but also important differences, and sometimes that is what gets really confusing. So take social struggles, for example. We've just said social struggles. Someone with ADHD might struggle socially because they blurt things out. They miss cues because they're distracted. And that can get you some real rejection, and we are sensitive to rejection. And so after time, once you are doing these socially awkward, supposedly, things, I don't find them socially awkward at all, but society as a whole might find them socially awkward. We get rejected, and then we get social anxiety from that. Meanwhile, someone with autism might genuinely interpret social cues differently altogether, as in they can't take the situation for what it is. Now, when I look myself at social situations, I would have said before I was diagnosed, I genuinely interpreted social cues the neurotypical way. Like, I knew exactly what someone was trying to get across. I could read their face. I could get I could read between the lines and knew what the vibe was of the conversation. But I was socially awkward because I would do things impulsively, and the next day I'd have anxiety, like, oh, why did I do that? And so that would classically fit in with ADHD. Now that I'm medicated, I don't blurt things out as much. I'm not as impulsive. I have much less anxiety. But actually, I do struggle with reading the situation more. And now that I'm not so distracted, I can question myself more on, am I reading this correctly? And there's been a few times where I have been close enough to someone afterwards to ask them directly, like, I'm reading this situation as this way. Is that how you read it? And they tell me, no, that is not what is happening in this social situation now. And I don't know whether before I just assumed, and because, you know, I have been in show business, I spent like a lot of my special interest is, and my hyper focus is human psychology. Let's face it, that's why I've got this podcast. I love the human mind. And so I feel like, was it just a coping mechanism whereby because I'm extroverted, because I get dopamine from learning about people and socializing with my ADHD, have I just learned to read the situation and become better at it than I would ordinarily if I just had autism? And actually, have I just assumed in some cases that I'm reading the situation really well and been so distracted by anxiety about my impulsiveness that I've totally missed the point and I haven't realised that I've completely misread the situation? So If that hasn't confused you anymore, hopefully you've resonated with that a bit, or you haven't resonated with it, and so you don't need to question at all whether you're ADHD or not. You'll know yourself. But this is just the aim of this episode, is to explain what's going on in my mind and exploring the overlap and seeing how you feel about it. I'm not telling you what you've got, what you haven't got, because I don't even know myself. But sensory stuff, let's take a look at that, because that's another big one. An ADHD brain might crave stimulation. In fact, we do crave stimulation, like needing music or movement to focus, while an autistic brain might be totally overwhelmed by too much stimulation, needing calm and predictability. Okay, so they're the two differences supposedly in autism and ADHD. Now, I fit right down the middle these days after being medicated. So I get completely bored if there isn't enough stimulation. But I also can't concentrate if there's too much stimulation. So my husband likes to listen to music while he's working. I cannot listen to music while I'm working. My brain wants to sing along with the song. It's not going to focus on what's in front of me. I also need to not be perceived. I hate people being around me, so I can't be in a cafe, a hustle bustle cafe. But if I sit in my office on my own, no one's in the house, there's not enough going on, and my brain will start making things up. So as you can tell, it's really hard for me to get anything done, and I have to really just work out that day, okay, what mood am I in? What level of stimulation do I need? Usually it's like some sweets to eat while I'm working, or a nice drink, or I've got like, sometimes I can have low-level subliminals like in the background and listen to that. Or, you know, I'll be learning something. I'll do like a course and I'll be playing games on my phone. So it's a real mix what I need. And so again, that leaves the question completely open. Then let's take a look at routines. ADHD tends to rebel against routines because we get bored with them very quickly. We need a bit of variety. Autism often craves them for safety and comfort. Now, this one really does confuse me, because I know for a fact through all of my studying, all of my tests and whatever that I've done over the years, that ADHD, although we do rebel against routines, we thrive in them. So the hack that I've come up with that is to create routines, stick with them for as long as they work, and when they don't work, then we change it up and we use a different routine. So even though ADHDers do tend to rebel against routines, we do really well with them. We need the structure. All you got to do is look at an ADHDer at the weekend with no plans. They usually will be taken over by ADHD paralysis. We need some form of structure. And autism craves routine for safety and comfort. And honestly, I have done no research into that. I'm just told that is true. For me, again, it's both. I need a routine or I will go straight into ADHD paralysis. It does give me a sense of comfort, but after a while, it does give me a sense of boredom. So I think in that one, I fall more into the ADHD category. Although I would love to stick to a routine, whenever I find one, I fall out of it really quickly. Sometimes I can come back to it, but it's a long time after I have to like cycle through different routines. It's messy and it's human, and honestly, it's why so many people are starting to resonate with the ADHD label, because it explains why sometimes our needs and reactions can feel like they completely clash with each other. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. And I also want to name the emotional side of this, because learning that you might be ADHD can bring up a lot of feelings. And those feelings are similar to when you've been diagnosed with either or. So the single thing. When I was first diagnosed with ADHD, there was relief, finally having an explanation for things that I've struggled with for years. There was grief. So many people have written to me talking about the grief when they are finally diagnosed, when you realise that maybe you needed a different support all along and things could have been really different. And then there's often a lot of self-doubt too, like, imposter syndrome. Am I ADHD enough? Maybe I'm just making excuses. Maybe the assessor got it wrong if you've been professionally diagnosed. There's a lot of self-doubt that comes into it. It's a very emotional process. And to go through that the first time and find out that you are diagnosed ADHD officially, and then to realise after a while that maybe you've also got autism too, can feel like a scary concept. And I personally have never identified with autism. Over the years, I've questioned myself on it for sure, because I have seen, when you get those quizzes and stuff, are you autistic? And they're just online and they're stupid. I would always fill them out. And when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I thought that was the answer, because I would fill out the autism quizzes and it would be a maybe you have autism. It was always a maybe. And I never felt like I fully 100% identified with autism. I think because it is such a spectrum. Everyone is so different with autism, whereas with ADHD, yes, we're all different. We all have different struggles, but there is a lot of sameness. I can recognise myself a lot in ADHD. And the only time I don't is when I meet someone who is predominantly hyperactive ADHD. Usually when I meet people who are the hyperactive type only, it's quite a rare type, I struggle to identify with them, because they're usually the ones that have got boundless energy, a million ideas, which I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of internal hyperactivity, like my brain is whizzing all the time. But that really non-stop energy bouncing off the walls, always ready to go, always laughing. I was that as a kid and it kind of fell off now. And I am not that out there person. I think if you, last year, or maybe even the year before, I went to the Ellie Middleton event for her new book at the time, which was How to Be You. And I remember turning up and I looked physically so different to everyone else. I felt like the odd one out. I was in all beige and everyone had all these fun clothes on. They had all blue hair, pink hair, just tattoos, piercings, which I like that look. I've just never gone down that road for myself. I went through a grungy phase in my teens, but it never stuck. And at the time I was thinking, is it because I mask so much? I'm so used to masking. But now I'm starting to question whether it's because A, I'm just very inattentive type, which is so different to hyperactive type, or is it because I'm actually ADHD and the autism is a little bit stronger and I like the clean lines. You can even see on the website on ADHDFest.com, you can go over and have a look there at the Burnout Bible printable that I made. So I made 2 versions of the printable. It's exactly the same content, but I could not decide on the style of the actual printable, what pictures to use and stuff. So one of them is very minimalist, very sleek, elegant, soft pinks, scenes, calming scenes of the ocean and stuff, pebbles. And then the other version could not be any more different. It's the same as the printed version, which is what I went with in the end for the printed version, because I could only have one. It's bright neon yellow with bright pinks, purples. It's cartoony, it's illustrations, it's fun. And actually when I've taken it to business workshops and stuff, people have asked me if it's aimed at young teens, because that's what it looks like. It looks very quirky, fun, dopamine all the way. And it made me laugh because I thought, what if I went with that other version of the Burnout Bible printable look that was very sleek, which I equally love. I love things to be sleek and pretty, but I also love the dopamine. And I think that might be the biggest clue, to be honest, to the fact that maybe I am autistic as well. I just don't know as much about autism, and because I think if I do have it, I'm predominantly ADHD, that's what takes the lead. I think it's just very hard for me to marry up my ADHD self with the classic autism behaviours, even though I know I do them, even though I know I do go down that order. I love order. that is the perfectionist side of me, and I like things sometimes to not be bright and bold and in my face. I just like them to be clean and delicate. And I think that might be the biggest clue, is I can never decide which one I am. I would love, do you know what, if I could dye my hair blue on a Monday and have it back to brunette on a Tuesday, I absolutely would live my life like that. But I'm too scared to get a tattoo, to get a piercing, to do any like bright colours in my hair, because I know I can't take it back, and I know I need to come back and like reset to factory settings. And so that's just how I feel about it. Look for little cute clues within your life, even though you might feel predominantly, yes, I'm 100% ADHD. There could be little clues like that here and there that maybe there's something else at play. It's okay to be exploring. You don't have to have all the answers today. I certainly don't have all the answers today. There's space for curiosity here always. And also, it might not matter. It might not matter to you. To me, I thought about going for diagnosis, like see an expert so they can definitively tell me. But then I thought, do you know what? The ADHD was enough of a clue for me to start really delving into myself. And if I don't know, how can an expert tell me? You know, I've done a lot of research. This isn't like ADHD where I had zero clue before I found out. Like, I've always kind of had a clue. And if I did get an expert to diagnose me, it would be purely for professional reasons, purely for this podcast, to be honest, so that I could represent a really authentic and tell you definitively, this is what I am. So if you recognize yourself in me in these parts, this is a possibility. But actually for myself, I would like to know, like I'd like to know who I am and if I do have autism. But at the same time, I'm not sure how much it would change in my life, because I already am on such a deep dive of, you know, self-expression and finding out about myself. And so it doesn't actually matter as a label to me as much. The label mattered to me before for ADHD because I was so sure. I was so sure I was ADHD and I wanted an expert to confirm it. With autism, I am not sure. And to be honest, if an expert told me I wasn't, I'm not sure I would 100% believe them. And if an expert told me I was, I'm not sure I would 100% believe them. I kind of need to know in my own mind. I think that's the point I'm making, is I would like to make the decision for myself first, what I believe is true, and then have an expert confirm or deny it. And at the moment, I'm not at that place. And so there's space for curiosity. If you're resonating with this and you're thinking, what now? It doesn't have to be anything now. If you feel like, actually, yes, I'm sure and I would like to know, then pursue a diagnosis. If you're in the UK, I know that is very, very difficult at the moment. So easier said than done. But you don't have to take any steps if you don't want to. Just stay curious. We can try and accommodate ourselves. If you believe you are, self-diagnosis is valid. You can start accommodating yourself from right now, here, today. As a confirmed ADHDer, I accommodate myself anyway, so it wouldn't make that much difference for me. How do you support yourself when you are living in this in-between land of ADHD and maybe autism as well? So here's what's been helping me and others that I've talked to. Number one, trust your sensory needs. Listen to your body. If you need silence, seek it. If you need stimulation, create it. No guilt either way. Day to day, it's going to be different. And a good tip that I got from the Francesca Amber podcast is to put my hand on my heart in the morning and ask myself, what do I need today? And an answer will come up in your head. So trust your body, trust that intuition. Next, I want yourself to let yourself crave both structure and novelty. Both are valid. And again, it just depends on how you're feeling that day. Presence is going to help you practicing being as present as possible. And thirdly, find community spaces that understand the crossover, where you don't have to explain or justify your brain. They get it. You know, here is a safe community. The ADHDFest group over on Facebook is a safe community. You can join the Body Doubling membership, we're a safe community too, or find ones local to you. And don't feel like the odd one out, because I do find I struggle with this, especially with autism, because I'm not sure. I feel, not that I'm not welcome in autistic spaces, but I feel a bit of a fraud, a bit of an outsider entering into purely autism and autistic spaces, because A, I'm not 100% sure yet, and B, I know I'm not, even if I was diagnosed autistic, I know I'm not 100% autistic. I am ADHD as well, and that puts a different spin on it. So try and find spaces that are welcoming to both sides of you. And above all, know that your experience is valid. There's no perfect way to be neurodivergent. There are an abundance of ways to be neurodivergent. And if you're hearing yourself in this conversation today, I just want to say you are not alone, you are not broken, you are not making it up, and you don't have to have a neat, tidy label to be worthy of support. You can support yourself, and I would love to support you too. As always, if you've got any thoughts on today's podcasts, then message me. I'm over on Instagram at ADHDFest. We've got the Facebook group, which is ADHDFest the group, and I'm on TikTok at ADHD_Fest. I'll also leave all the links below to everything that I love, and I will see you hopefully all next week. I know I've missed a couple of weeks recently. Of the last 4 weeks, I've done one pod. I missed a week, did a pod, and then missed 2 more weeks. And honestly, it's because I've been totally creatively blocked. I'm not sure what's going on at the moment. And I know this podcast is free and I don't have to be here every Friday, but I like to be here every Friday. I know how much I value other people's podcasts, and if they don't post on the days that I'm expecting it, I really miss it, and I don't want to let you guys down. I've just been really blocked on what to speak about, because mainly a lot because I've been thinking about this in case I am ADHD, and I don't want to lead anyone down the wrong path who is purely ADHD and maybe they don't resonate with some of this content. But maybe I am purely ADHD and actually people with ADHD don't resonate with this content. Who knows? But as always, I'm not an expert. There's plenty of podcasts with expert, nitty-gritty, scientific approaches to this, and I like to include some of the science, but I'm mainly talking to you on a human level, on an experience level, and how we can all help each other. That has always been the aim of this podcast, is community and sharing ideas, and I hope that is coming through. So hopefully I will see you next Friday. I hope you have a brilliant week, and see you next time. Bye.